I have a confession to make. A few years ago, I almost lost my own marriage. We were in that quiet, really dangerous place where love doesn't end with a big fight, but with this long, slow fade to gray. And the thing that pulled us back from the edge? Well, it wasn't counseling, at least not at first. It was a movie. I know how that sounds, I really do. But what I stumbled upon was this lifeline I never, ever expected. It started me on this whole journey to find films that do more than just entertain us for a couple of hours. These are films that act as mirrors, as scripts, and honestly as a safe place to start the conversations you're absolutely terrified to have. So today, we're going to explore 8 of them, from the friendship at the heart of When Harry Met Sally, to the nuts and bolts repair work in Hope Springs, and yeah, even the brutal honesty of Marriage Story to see how they can actually become our guides. This was my life. Literally. The silence in our home was heavier than any argument we could have had. You know that kind of silence? It was filled with all these small, unsaid resentments that were just piling up like unread messages in an inbox. Just sitting there, getting older. We'd moved from real intimacy to this kind of, icy politeness, where "how was your day" was just a formality. It wasn't a question you actually wanted the answer to. We were just 2 people sharing a space, coexisting, but we were not connecting. We were lonely, but we were lonely together. And the absolute worst part was the pretense, that silent agreement to just scroll on our phones and not acknowledge the huge chasm that was opening up right there between us on the couch. The change? It started on a completely ordinary Tuesday night. We were watching some forgettable drama. Honestly, it was mostly just background noise. But then, this scene came on. A really simple dinner conversation where one character finally, and so quietly, admitted how completely exhausted they were. And it was like a lightning bolt in the room. It just pulled a truth out of me that I had been burying for months and months. I paused the movie, I turned to my husband, and the first real conversation we'd had in what felt like a year just spilled out. And that's when I realized movies didn't have to be an escape from our problems. They could actually be a bridge back to each other, a way to practice saying the hard things. Okay, let's dive into this with an absolute classic. When Harry Met Sally is so much more than the "I'll have what she's having" scene. At its core, this film is this incredibly powerful argument that the strongest, most lasting love is built on a foundation of deep, honest-to-goodness friendship. So many relationships, mine included, suffer because we expect our partners to be mind readers, right? This romantic ideal that can't possibly exist. This film just strips all that away and shows the slow, patient work of actually getting to know someone over years. It champions clear talk, shared laughter, and the courage to just be vulnerable. It actually inspired a rule in our house after watching Harry's desperate, honest, and slightly chaotic New Year's Eve confession. We started the one real thing rule. So here's your homework if you're up for it. When Harry finally lays his heart on the line, pause the movie, turn to your partner and ask that question. What's one honest thing we haven't said to each other this month? Then for the next week, commit to the exercise. Every single night, swap one true thing. It could be something small like, "I was hurt when you were short with me this morning." Or it can be big, "I'm really scared about our finances." Now, what's so cool about this is how it just completely dismantles that dangerous expectation of mind reading. You're replacing assumption with declaration. These tiny, consistent admissions, they're like the scaffolding you use to rebuild the whole structure of trust, one small, honest brick at a time. I know. Some people find this one super cheesy, but just hear me out. The real power of The Notebook isn't in the passionate summer romance. It's in the quiet, stubborn devotion of old Noah. He chooses Allie over and over and over again, even when she can't remember who he is. The film offers this beautiful solution to a problem that every long-term couple faces. What happens when life changes you? What happens when illness or tragedy or just the slow march of time shifts who you are? The answer the film gives is this idea of radical continuity, the active, intentional act of preserving and retelling your shared story to anchor yourselves. It's about curating your own mythology as a couple, your we-ness, to hold onto when everything else feels totally unstable. Your homework here is incredibly powerful. Seriously, pause on any scene where Noah is reading their story aloud from that notebook. Ask your partner, what is one beloved memory of us that you hold on to? And then, for the exercise, Don't just state it. Tell the full story of it. Describe the day, the light, what you were wearing, how you felt inside. There's actually real science behind this. Recounting positive shared memories triggers the release of oxytocin and dopamine, literally reinforcing the neural pathways of connection and affection in your brain. It reminds you that you have a history worth fighting for and that you chose and continue to choose each other. All right, let's move on to our next section and see how this all builds. Because romance and memories are absolutely vital, but sometimes a relationship needs a different kind of fuel. It needs work. Active, structured, and yeah, sometimes really awkward work. This next set of films, they don't shy away from that one bit. They actually model the emotional labor that's required to pull a connection back from the brink, and they make it feel doable. Ugh, this film. It felt like someone turned on a flashlight in a dark room for me. It's one of the few mainstream movies that treats couples therapy not as this dramatic last resort or a sign of failure, but as a practical, skill-building exercise. It so perfectly captures the decades of polite silence that can settle over a marriage, turning partners into roommates, and what's just brilliant about it is that it normalizes the sheer awkwardness of trying to fix things. Watching Meryl Streep and Tommy Lee Jones just fumble through their homework assignments was both painful and incredibly hopeful, because it showed that learning a new way to connect is just that, a skill you can actually learn. So, the crucial point is that the solution this film offers is so procedural. It's not about waiting for some magical epiphany to strike, it's about following the steps. Pause during any of the therapy homework scenes. Ask your partner, what's one small structured exercise we could try? A great place to start is the exercise on this slide, a 10-minute, phone-free check-in every evening. No problem solving, no fixing things, just sharing. That structure creates safety. When you both know there's a dedicated time and place to connect, those small resentments are way less likely to fester and turn into big arguments. It makes the path forward feel less like mystery and more like a totally achievable plan. This film is a gut punch, but it's a necessary one. It forces a confrontation with responsibility and the whole concept of invisible labor. It powerfully illustrates that in a partnership, withdrawal isn't neutral. It's an action, and it has consequences. Watching Dustin Hoffman's character transform from a disconnected workaholic into a present, engaged father, it made me look at my own patterns. The film makes visible all the domestic and emotional work that so often falls on just one partner, and it shows that a true partnership isn't about defined roles. It's about active, daily participation in the life you're building together. It was a huge realization for me about what it truly means to be present. And this just brilliantly illustrates the connection between the drama on screen and our real lives. Pause during one of the many messy, super realistic scenes of negotiation, and then ask the tough question, is there an area where one of us feels they are carrying an uneven load? Then, commit to a small experiment. Not a vague promise to help more, but a specific behavioral change. Like, okay, I will handle school drop-offs on Tuesdays and Thursdays. This moves the conversation from blame, you never do XD, to collaboration, how can we solve Y together? The film shows that change really comes from doing, not just promising. Navigating a crisis is one of the ultimate tests for a couple, isn't it? What The Big Sick does so beautifully is model how to handle these immense external pressures. Illness, cultural differences, family expectations as a team. For us, it opened the door to conversations about our own families that we had been avoiding for years. The film shows that a crisis can either drive a huge wedge between you or forge an unbreakable bond. The key difference is a willingness to be vulnerable, to show up for each other even when you have no idea what the right thing to say is, and to choose your partnership above all those other competing demands. Here's how you can use it. Pause during one of the conversations where Kumail is trying to "we need to set." The exercise is to then actually write that boundary down, like we won't be discussing our finances with our parents, and then rehearse explaining it calmly as a united front. This isn't about being confrontational, it's an act of defining and protecting the relationship itself. If you're creating a "we" that is distinct from your families of origin, and this kind of honesty up front is what prevents a mountain of resentment from building up later. Okay, now we get to the really tough stuff. This final set of films are the ones that hold up a mirror to the most difficult, uncomfortable, and frankly, ugly parts of a long-term relationship. They are not easy to watch, I'm not gonna lie, but they teach an absolutely essential lesson that persistence, even through brutal honesty, is one of the deepest acts of love there is. If you've ever been in a long-term relationship, the famous hotel room argument in Before Midnight is so real, it's almost hard to breathe. It's a masterclass on how small, accumulated hurts can just explode. There's this relationship researcher, Dr. John Gottman, and he talks about the 4 horsemen that predict divorce: criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. All 4 of them are on vivid display right there in that hotel room. But crucially, the film also shows what comes after, the fragile, awkward attempt at repair. I cried watching it because I recognized the cadence of my own fights, and it taught me that goal isn't to never fight, but to learn how to fight better. This is advanced homework for sure, but it can be transformative. Pause the movie right after that huge argument. Ask each other, what is one small hurt that has been left unnamed between us? Then try this exercise, a truth slot. 5 minutes every night, one person speaks, totally uninterrupted, about one small annoyance and one small appreciation from the day. The other person's only job is to listen without defending. This trains your listening muscle and helps separate the issue from the person. The film models how to find these small mercies in the middle of all the anger and how to stay in the room even when it's really, really hard. This film, Marriage Story, it broke me, and then helped me put things back together, but in a totally new way. It's a devastating look at how a good marriage can completely unravel. What I found so powerful was its exploration of emotional algebra. You know, the compounding interest of unspoken needs, unseen contributions, and these tiny miscommunications. It's a masterclass in how 2 good people who really do love each other can find themselves living in completely different realities, where one person's compromise is another person's sacrifice. It shows how, without clear and kind communication, your perspectives can diverge until you're essentially in 2 different marriages living under the same roof. Pause during that incredible, gut-wrenching argument in the apartment. Ask yourself this: when we argue, does my language help or does it escalate? For the exercise, practice reflective listening. The next time you're in a disagreement and your partner says something that hurts, just take a breath and say, okay, what I hear you saying is, and then repeat their point back to them. This isn't about agreeing with them at all. It's about showing you understand them. It sends the message, your reality matters to me, which is the single most powerful tool for de-escalation and the perfect antidote to the tragic divergence that's shown in the film. This film, Revolutionary Road, is a cautionary tale, a huge one. It is a terrifyingly accurate mirror for what happens when unspoken disappointments just calcify into a shared prison. April and Frank Wheeler are suffocating under the weight of everything they aren't saying, not just their frustrations, but their dreams, their hopes. The film explores the profound danger of prioritizing the appearance of happiness over the pursuit of authentic joy. It's a powerful warning about how resentment curdles into contempt when you stop seeing your partner as a teammate and building a life you both actually love. Honestly, you can pause this film almost anywhere and see the frustration just simmering under the surface. Pause on one of those moments and ask, what is a small dissatisfaction you haven't voiced? The exercise here is pure preventative medicine. Start a weekly check-in, 5 minutes on a Sunday night. Each person shares one frustration from the week and one they appreciated. The structure removes the emotional charge and turns a potential fight into a productive conversation. It's all about lancing the small infections of disappointment before they poison the whole system. So, after going through all of these films, what's the core takeaway here? Well, it's about a fundamental shift in behavior. It's about reframing what movie night is even for. For years, we used it as an escape, a way to numb out and avoid talking. But these films taught me how to use it as a bridge, a tool for active, intentional connection. Just look at this slide. On the left, that's how most of us watch movies. As simple entertainment, background noise, a way to fill the silence and not have to talk. But on the right, that's the shift I'm talking about. Watching as a bridge means seeing the film as a mirror for your own life. It means borrowing a line of dialogue to use as a script for a tough conversation you need to have. And it means using a scene as a rehearsal for how you want to show up in your own relationship. It's the difference between being passive consumers and being active participants in your own life. Okay, I know, I've thrown a lot at you. 8 films, 8 sets of homework, it might feel a little overwhelming. But the truth is, you don't have to do it all at once. The whole point is to just start small. The journey back to each other begins with a single step, a single conversation, a single movie night where you decide to do things just a little bit differently. Here is the full list. Just pick one. Just one film from this list that speaks to where you are right now. The core message of this entire explainer is that you don't need some grand gesture to fix what's broken. You need small, shared moments and tiny, consistent rituals that rebuild trust over time. These films are just the catalyst. They provide the space and the language to start. The real work and the real magic that happens after the credits roll. If this explainer gave you a place to start, I'd love it if you'd like the video and subscribe so we can explore more ideas like this together. And I genuinely want to know, leave a comment below and tell me which film you're going to try first, or if there's one that has already helped you. Thank you for watching with me.